Good evening. Welcome to All or Nothing Podcast. Tonight, we will be having a discussion, Viv and myself. What's up, Demarcus? What's going on? Tonight, Viv and myself, we will be having a discussion um, on the gender divide and what and who may be responsible for the division within the Black community. And this topic, um, I believe, coincide with a million topics on this subject, a million topics on a bunch of different podcasts. A lot of people have platforms on relationships, not just relationships as a couple, but just the general health of the Black community. And they always talk about this divide, this division, this war, this battle, this as we would say, and what has went on, and what and how it has gotten worse, even in our short lifetimes, um, for what most people grew up on. What's up, Viv?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Right off the bat, Demarcus put,
Okay.
"Do y'all believe in role reversal and house husband?"
Role reversal. So I'm not a huge fan of gender roles in the first place. So do I believe in house husband as in if I was in a situation where I happened to make a lot of money, let's just say I was making like 300,000, 500,000 a year, right? And it was more feasible for my husband to stay at home if we had children and take care of childcare and stuff like that so that we wouldn't have to pay for extremely expensive childcare, then absolutely. Yeah, of course. I feel like at the end of the day, you do what makes sense. It doesn't make, you know what I mean? Like, you do what makes sense. Like, I have a friend who she makes a lot of money. And I mean, he was a professional too. It's not that, but they made the decision that while the kids needed childcare, it made sense for him to do it. And he was more than man enough to take on that role.
You know, Demarcus, you got Viv answering that question before we even set the show, but
It's
it's good you asked that question.
a great question.
We don't we actually welcome more questions than us just talking,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I kind of know where Viv is at with hers. She knows where I'm at with mine,
yeah.
and having people in the chat intermingle,
Yeah.
it helps for a better conversation. Because, in my personal opinion, I believe everybody is trying to quote unquote get it right. Nobody wants to live in any aspect of their life quote unquote unhealthy.
Hmm. That's fair.
Everybody wants harmony.
Hmm.
I'm a person, I love solitude. Viv loves solitude. So when you, a person who loves solitude, when you allow someone in your space, you're very careful with who you allow in your space.
Yeah.
And that goes for even family,
Hmm.
um, because you don't want somebody to interrupt
Interrupt
your
your peace.
peace.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
when you look at the gender role, Viv, and
Hmm.
historically, I'm one that really tries to understand it
Hmm.
from a perspective of, for those that don't know, I've been podcasting for quite some time, and
Hmm.
reading certain information and coming across certain information. A lot of people talk about what happened because for most of us, during slavery,
Hmm.
our ancestors, so to say, were not divided. They were still getting married during slavery. Um, Say, for example, if she was in the house,
Hmm.
she did that cooking and cleaning thing, and
Hmm.
he was in the field, they still had some form of a union. This is what a lot of experts in
Yeah. Okay.
that
And that's
field
fair.
say.
What is the reasons that you have read for that though?
Because I think, for me, to be perfectly honest with you, when you look at some of the issues now that a lot of the younger people talk about, even with this role that the brother Demarcus said, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't think even when we look at traditional gender roles,
Hmm.
tradition, in my opinion, you guys, traditional gender roles were never defined. And what I mean by this is my grandmother was, I'm just using my grandparents as an example.
Okay.
My grandfather had two jobs his whole life.
Hmm.
He was a custodian and then he worked for Ford.
Okay.
Back in the days, factory job in America was a great job.
Hmm.
You were able to take care of your family. You were able to provide.
Yeah.
He actually shared a car with another family.
Okay.
That's like family to me now,
Hmm.
right? Mr. Leslie worked at night. My grandfather worked in the day, and they would use the car, whatever, right?
Hmm.
Also, my grandmother was a registered nurse.
Okay.
She took care of her family,
Hmm.
provided, cooked, cleaned. It wasn't grandma cooking. My grandfather cooked,
Okay.
cleaned. She had a garden. He took care of the garden. Like they did
That's beautiful.
everything. He never could do nothing that she couldn't do, from what I saw.
Hmm. Okay.
And she couldn't do nothing that he couldn't do.
Hmm.
So I think that this quote unquote role thing um, was something that, and I know that they base a lot of stuff off of data,
Hmm.
was something that data started to define for people instead of people saying what works for them in their house
Hmm.
works for them in their house.
I got you. So my grandparents, I'll say my maternal grandparents were very opposite from your grandparents. Like hey brown girl. Um, my maternal grandparents were sharecroppers, right? So they both, I mean, you're talking about priming tobacco and all that stuff, right? Doing all that. Um, they had much more traditional roles, though, I would say, when it came to the house. Like my grandma cooked, she cleaned, she did all that stuff, in addition to being out there priming tobacco. So she did all of that. And I mean, I think what I'll say there though, because you brought up a point that your grandfather worked, right? He had a good job. Your grandmother worked, clearly educated, had a good job. Oh, but okay, never mind. You did say they both kind of shared the responsibility in the house, so it was different from my grandparents. Like it really was divided more gender wise, even though my grandmama was still out in the field priming tobacco, so she just had the extra added responsibility of
Mm.
the household. I'm not saying my grandfather didn't do anything. I don't mean it like that, but it was more traditional.
Yeah, so I say that like even with my grandfather, and I think about all the things that he instilled in his sons, and then
Mhm.
some of the grandsons was he left Georgia with a third grade education.
Okay.
Had to do what he had to do for his family from third grade education to whenever.
Hmm.
And at 18, 19, he went to Chicago to find
Oh,
his love, which was my grandmother. Now, my
okay.
grandmother, they grew up together,
Yeah.
but some circumstances happened where she got sent to Chicago. So he
Okay.
went to Chicago and got his woman.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, and then basically migrated to New Jersey
Hmm.
without nothing.
Okay.
They were living with someone from the church, church friend, put them up. We talking about two kids,
Hmm.
two smaller kids, and a baby, like literally a
Okay.
baby. My father was a baby. And eventually got on his feet,
Hmm.
bought a home, had three more kids.
Okay.
So my thing, and this is, I never, like I said, I never seen our generation, probably a generation before us, where so much, um, I won't say dysfunction, but separation or division. Let's use our word that we use for the
Okay.
title. So much division has happened. We know that statistically in this country, marriage rates are very, very low
Hmm.
and divorce rates are very, very high,
Hmm.
not just in the black community, but all
Just in general.
communities. And you hear a lot of people feel like they don't want the traditional marriage.
Hmm.
which is perfectly understandable and fine. But it's like you ask them on the further data, and they'll say it has nothing to do with not wanting to be with somebody. It's just so much division. So
What was it? What
Demarcus,
was Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question that came up while I was talking?
yeah,
Because I didn't.
Demarcus said, I honestly think that people knock the house husband and see a house wasn't as a house ninja and is lazy.
Oh,
Well,
I don't think so.
that's where it goes,
Can't see that.
Demarcus. I personally believe that whatever you and your partner choose. See, the thing like Viv gave the example, and then I spoke about my grandparents is uh, when you're in a let's just say a relationship, roles are defined basically by lifestyle, by
Hmm.
things that happen. So if you work nights and that person work days, I mean, one of y'all may cook, one of y'all may not cook. I mean, I think that the discourse and division comes outside of with outside forces and putting you in a this box instead of saying what goes on in that house, how they choose to run their house,
Hmm.
it works for them.
Yeah, but I feel like, I mean, I think that's it's a wonderful perspective that you have. I think it's also very progressive because I don't know, maybe your experience has been different than mine. So, and maybe it's geographical. My family's south. So, my grandparents were down south, like, so it was very much gender roles in
Mm,
from what I grew up around, even down to, and my mom, my sister always felt like this from younger. I kind of was just like, I hear you, it is what it is. But she always felt like really strongly about this, you know, during like Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? If we were down south, no lie, like in my aunt's house, the women and the girls included would be in between, everybody eating. We're washing the dishes, getting those new dishes set out. Da, da, da. The men are sitting watching TV, and this is just how it is. And so
mm.
that's been my experience. I've always had very
Let me
strong feelings from
let
a
me
young age of that because I was
let,
around that.
let me ask you, Viv. You know, I don't want you guys in the chat, and I'm appreciate your questions, Professor Dre and Demarcus. And Viv, I don't want to turn the show into trying to critique your lifestyle, your life. But let me ask you, do you think that was just like more tradition that you said the girls would, be doing certain
Versus what?
things? More of, they believe that this is what women do?
It Well, I know, don't get me wrong. I don't think if you asked anybody, right? If you had asked anybody who was there, I don't think any of the men would be like, yeah, the women need. It wasn't a disrespect thing, but
Okay.
yeah, tradition. But that's where all that comes from, though. It's like that's how
Okay.
that continues to be passed down generation to generation. Is just
Okay.
kind of like, well, the women are in the kitchen cooking, the women are cleaning the dishes, the women are. So
Because I have seen, I know you said that that maybe I saw more of a progressive aspect, but I do think that those type of, I don't say roles or things that just happen, are things that happen. What I mean by that is when I would bring people to my grandparents' house, I was used to my grandparents, as my grandmother in particular, asking me and whoever I brought, "You hungry?
mm-hmm,
Have some dinner."
mm-hmm,
And then if she didn't do it, and that was my grandfather would say it.
mm-hmm.
You know what I
I
mean?
think that's a very, again, progressive and special situation. Gender roles are a real thing.
Mm,
Gender roles are a real thing, and
mm.
many households have been influenced by them. And okay, the
So
house.
Drea put the house husband could be working remotely or running a
Hmm.
business. I
Agreed.
think people need to focus on what works for them.
Yeah.
So Demarcus asked us about the preacher prenups being a marriage.
I think it depends. I think it depends. I mean, I think that's up to each couple. It might save some heartache if a divorce happens. Yeah, a prenup is not a bad idea, even if because all it really does is lay out should this marriage be dissolved, how are things going to be divided? You know what I mean? So not for nothing, like if you have someone who's like an author, right? And they're writing book. Same. It was it in Why Did I Get Married? Remember, she
Hmm.
had written all those books, and then he was like, "I want all this money," and she was like, "Those are mine. Like, what are you talking about?" So prenups are not a horrible idea, even if you don't have a ton of money going in. It just lays the rules out for what happens if you get a divorce. So not a bad idea.
Just I would preface my answer by saying marriage is a wealth transfer.
Okay.
So a prenup can prevent an ungained wealth transfer.
Yeah. Agreed.
So
Agreed.
that's how you have to look at it. So
Mhm.
if you feel like this needs to be protected, maybe a
Get a
prenup is
prenup.
best for you. If you feel like this wealth transfer uh, doesn't need to protect it,
Mhm.
I would say that it 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 would be. I think prenups are very interesting because a lot of times it's prenups and both parties,
Mhm.
from the eyes of us, have money.
Right. 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 Right.
You know what I mean? It's not uh, this person's worth 10 million, this
Yeah.
person's worth a couple 100,000.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
usually millionaires
Yes.
doing this type of stuff,
Mhm.
and we know it may be some circumstances where it's a little different, but it might be protections. It might be things that go into place. A lot of people, and this could lead to a future conversation. A lot of people have their money protected,
Mhm.
and not just from the person that they choose to marry, but also from themselves. This is how a lot of people may have a salary, or their money may be in a trust, and
Mhm.
you got to have certain protections in place for certain things to happen.
Yeah.
Demarcus said, "I feel why I think negative with a prenup." And
Oh,
and
I think
and
negatively about it. I got you. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
one thing that a friend of mine, she always says that in the black community we marry for love. We don't look at just what her understanding is that
I'm just thinking about it. I'm not.
sometimes we marry for love. In other communities, they get married, yeah, they might fall in love or be in love, but they think about, okay,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to school to be a lawyer. She ain't going to school to be a doctor. I don't
Yeah.
know if I want to be with her because
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, it's a different outlook. Um,
yeah.
so okay. So I know you have the view that you feel like this gender divide is new, right? It's newer, like more correct.
I feel like it may be like the 60s, and it's getting
Okay.
worse. It's getting to the point, and it's like n- nobody seems to want to fix it.
Okay. So what do you okay? So when you think about the gender divide and you feel like it's getting worse, what are you noticing? It's trending toward what? Like what's happening from your perspective with it?
It's trending towards unconsciously. I may like women, but I hate women.
Mm-hmm.
And unconsciously, I think some women like men, but they hate men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's. I think it's very disheartening. I'm one person that believes in that nuclear family. I believe in
Yeah.
communication. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that healthy communication is very, very important. I think that's the problem. That's one of the roots to the problem is that we are really talking at each other instead of with each other. I think that most people, when you're dealing in a relationship, they will tell you exactly how they feel,
Mm-hmm.
what they want, what they expect. And for some reason, we don't hear that. We turn a blind eye on it. We look at people and they say stuff, and we hear what we want to hear and internalize what we want to internalize. We try to make, for example, if you know that you're dealing with somebody who doesn't really ain't into cooking,
Mm-hmm.
so now you with them, y'all decide to move in together. Now you want this person. You think this person
Mm-hmm.
gonna cook every night?
Right, right, right.
No, they're not.
Yeah. But I think the frustration though, I think the what seems to be right, the black men and women butting heads is the it's the discussions we're having. I think it's, I know I'm going to speak for me as a woman. I have found myself getting very angry sometimes talking to men and hearing what I feel are very archaic, oppressive views. And
Mm,
for me, I get angry because I'm like, sure, would I like to find a companion or a partner if it works? Sure. But the mentality of some of these men is, and I'm not saying all men, of course, I'm just talking about some of my experience, it's disheartening. Like, I don't want to be put in a box. You know how many men, like in me out here dating now, one of the first questions is, "Oh, can you cook?" Why? And I'm always like, I do all right. But this is what women are experiencing. And I'm just talking as a woman. I'm not saying men are not experiencing a lot of foolishness too. But I think that is some of what's happening. We're listening to each other, but it's frustrating when I'm getting the, "Can you cook?" or "Do you like to cook?" or I expect, my woman to like give me sex. Like, it's annoying. So yeah, it makes you kind of be like, I don't like men very much. Like, it is. And I think so. I think that is some of what's happening. And I think men are being offended too by women who might be asking how much, money do you make? Da, da, da. You know what I mean? So I think that's where some of it is. And I don't, I feel strongly about um facts, cooking and cleaning. Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. Um, I feel strongly that I don't know that the divide is growing. I think that the issues have always been there, but women have were not able to really express themselves, right? For a long time. They weren't really empowered to do so. So I don't know how many women who were in marriages before loved cooking cleaning. I always say when men are like, "Oh, why aren't women like my grandmama?" I'm like, half of y'all grandmamas were unhappy as hell, bro. Like, but nobody wants to talk about that. Half of your granddaddies had extra families down the road, but nobody wants to
you
talk about
think?
it. Everyone
Let me ask you.
idolizes this
I'm
era.
glad you brought that up. I think that
I don't. Oh,
a lot a lot of times in that aspect, Viv,
mm-hmm,
that a lot of people draw from their experience, and whether their experience was good, bad, or indifferent, they may look at their, like I will tell you, I'm not going to sit here and say my grandparents' marriage didn't have its ups and downs. I know things that probably the kids don't know because they
mm-hmm,
tell me.
right.
Because I made sure to ask certain things back then
Mm-hmm,
when they were both here. Um, do you think that a lot of us, like for me, I can say my grandfather's experience. Okay, I looked at my grandfather as my hero,
mm-hmm.
so I can take from his experience and say, okay, that's a good thing. This is what I want for me.
Okay.
Perhaps I may never meet somebody like that, that
Mm-hmm,
I could do all that he did for me.
mm-hmm,
I'm starting to realize that a lot of people had bad experiences or bad things to draw from. Be
mm-hmm.
like, nah, for example, a lot of people seen their grandmother put up with being the side piece or put up with being knowing he had a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
family across town.
Yep.
And they like, nah, I'm not putting up with none of that.
Mm-hmm,
I'm not gonna be around that.
mm-hmm,
And I think that in a lot of cases, even from our parents, now I don't want to use our grandparents, even from our parents'
mm-hmm.
situation, that is a form of trauma, which is okay.
Yeah.
A form of trauma that, okay, I want to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in you. I'm not telling you that part of my trauma right now.
Well, yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Even though that weird, crazy trauma molded my maybe
It
distorted
helps shape.
viewpoint, yeah,
Mhm.
helped shape my viewpoint. But instead of me sharing that part of my trauma so you could understand me, what makes me tick, what why does he, like when you just said the antiquated view, I understand. Listen, I
Yeah.
understand exactly what you and Professor Dre are talking about. My mother taught me how to cook and clean and iron my clothes. She said,
Mhm.
"Look, you need to learn this type of stuff as a young man."
I'm getting it from men who can do that. They're
So
clear.
look,
My
I
mom
would
taught me to
never.
do it,
I have
but
never went. I've never asked a woman in their life could they
and
cook.
that's amazing.
No, no, I know. I'm quite sure. I think that's a weird question for me.
I hear you.
That
Yeah.
to me would seem like a very weird question
Hmm.
to ask someone because you know why, Viv?
Hmm.
I ain't worried about if a female can cook.
Right.
That that don't concern me because I can.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
hear you. Yeah.
I, I'll tell you,
But
you can.
this
Yeah,
is why the issues are there though, because there are men and women again asking foolish questions. You know what I mean? And expecting foolishness. Like it's just yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I don't think the gender divide is new. I think that and we talk about rates of marriage dropping. You know, there are statistics that say married men live longer. Married women have earlier death rates. We don't live as long. Marriage is not as beneficial for us. What do y'all think about the covenant or commonwealth marriage? I say
I live in a Commonwealth state.
do your thing. I
I
say
live in the
whatever.
I live in the Commonwealth state.
Yeah.
I live in a state where it's a lot of what we would consider the Amish. I live in Pennsylvania, so
Okay, right.
you see different religious aspects of marriage,
Hmm.
and I think that we like Viv said, one of the things that I always try to use as my go to, and I think it is the core of my personal beliefs, is understanding that every body is different and unique. And what you and that particular person
Hmm.
choose to run your household
Hmm.
is very unique.
Hmm.
And I should not give advice.
Hmm.
I know as a friend, I listen and I tell guy friends and female friends, whatever you do in your home is your business. If you
Hmm.
choose to tell me and you want my advice, I'm going to give you advice based off of the information that you told me, not what I think about how I do what I do at my house.
Hmm.
And that is the same when it comes to anything. Like I know Demarcus, you brought up the house husband. The house husband, I think it's the makeup of the man. And what I mean by this, Demarcus, is a lot of us as men, we believe what makes us men is to protect,
Hmm.
provide,
Hmm.
protecting and providing. So if we're not working, or we're working and we're this in the house and cooking and cleaning, we may not have self worth in doing that.
Right. Yeah.
So that alone, right there, if you have that mindset or you have that mentality that you're supposed to get out there, and, as we say, get it from the mud, you being a house husband would probably drive you crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some men may not look at it that way and be like, look, it's just me and her. We in this together. We
Right.
raising our family. She out getting that paper. So I'm gonna make it my working with my while. I'm gonna take care. I'm gonna do everything possible to make it easier for her because she's the breadwinner.
Right.
So it's really the makeup
Hmm.
of the
Yeah.
individual. How he definitely when it comes to men
Yeah.
and women, we need to for men need to define to themselves what manhood means for them
Hmm.
in protecting and providing
Yeah.
because you could be the biggest dude in the world and you can't protect shit.
Right.
And he may not
Yeah.
feel protected. A lot
Hmm.
of I'm starting to realize that a lot of women may just feel protected because of you being there, your presence, not
Yeah.
you being superly aggressive around her, just you
Yes.
being there.
Right. And I think that's the thing, right? There is definitely a shift now because women are in the workplace. Women are okay, let's talk about black
Dealing
women
with those
are in the
microaggressions.
yeah, black women are in the workplace. Black women are highly educated, all of that. So now where before, and this is where the bumping heads is coming in because before men could show up, yes, exactly. Women that is not the same for women, exactly. Before where a man could show up and he's like, well, I can protect and I can provide, right? I can do all that stuff. So the emotional uh, intelligence element and providing emotionally for a woman, that was kind of back burner. Let's just be honest. Again, going back to, you talk about the patriarchy a lot, going back to how men and women or boys and girls are socialized. It was always taught men like, okay, you make the money, you're the breadwinner, da 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 da, and that is what you do. That makes you a man. Now women are like, I provide for myself. I adult as I should. I can provide for myself. I'm highly educated, da da da. I need you to show up emotionally. And I forgot. I think it was a Here's the Thing podcast, and she made the point that many men are having a difficult time transitioning from being needed to being wanted. If you've built your manhood on the basis that a woman needs you, and now you have women saying, I want a word change. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you financially. I can take my trash out. I can da da da. If I had something in the house that needed to be fixed, I could call somebody, right? I don't need you in that way. I might want those things. That might be a wonderful addition, but I can make it on my own. But now I need you to show up with more than just your money and your dick swinging, right? Like, I need you to be a mature adult and really add something to this relationship emotionally. Many men are struggling with that.
Mm.
Because honestly, within the group, how many conversations have I gotten in? Excuse me, how have I gotten in with men talking about who's the lead and who's this, and I'm a man, and that, like, oh my God, that is the argument. That's the gender divide,
Mm.
because many women are like being hit and inundated with this rhetoric of the quote unquote alpha male and the quote unquote, I'm the head of household, I'm the lead. This is what we're dealing with. Like, bro, I'm highly educated. What are you talking about? I'm a
Mm.
lead. You know what I mean? You're talking to women who are leaders in their field, who are, have their independent businesses, again, who are well educated, who, like, what? What are we talking about? That's the gender divide. That's where people are butting heads,
You
because
think
that is not enough.
I'm gonna ask you a question, right? It's
Mhm.
interesting you saying that, and I can't say I disagree with everything you're saying. I actually agree with it because I really think a lot of times, like I said, people are talking and they're not listening to what somebody's saying. Like, given all that, and I hate this phrase, you
Mhm.
guys. I hate this. What somebody bring to the table shit. That shit drives
Oh,
me
I got
bananas,
you.
right? But given everything that you said, Viv, I think that a lot of times people may not look at, like, you know what? I'm gonna be a liability to her.
Mm,
I'm
mhm,
not really gonna be an asset.
mm,
She needs an asset.
mhm.
So how can I help her
Yeah.
be her, as we would say, for lack of better words, help me, instead
Mm,
of being somebody who's gonna draw from all that she got going on. I'm just gonna just suck all that energy out of her, suck all her financial resource.
resources,
Like,
yeah.
and I think that one of the biggest things, and I always hear this, and Demarcus, if you're still with us, I need you to respond to this. And I've heard this. A lot of women feel like most men can't even hold the conversation.
Mhm,
I've heard that, and I'm like,
mhm.
what do you mean they can't hold the conversation? And to hear that, like you said, that some men are so fixated on leading
Yeah.
or being feel like they're a leader to an
Yes.
ego,
Mhm.
that literally you might be in a situation where you're allowed to lead and you can't,
That part.
because you're wasting more time on a title, a
Mhm.
role, instead
A
of just
role.
doing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because unfortunately, and I'm not saying it's an indoctrination or whatever, some of us have these roles embedded in us,
Mhm. Mhm.
even though we may not say it.
Mhm.
So my understanding, my belief is that you don't have to act like a leader. A woman is going to she's going to allow you to be whatever you want to be,
Mhm.
if it goes inside with making her happy.
Mhm.
Making her happy, okay, you know, she ain't worried about. Some women don't use their money as a weapon.
Mhm.
They ain't thinking about that.
Right.
They're going, you know, and if you look at historical figures, you always go back to if you they always say these successful men, they all were successful if you look at their wives. And they'll
Mhm.
say it. They'll say it.
Mhm.
They'll say, "Oh, my wife was very patient with me
Yeah.
when I did this and so forth." So I think
Yeah.
the male ego
Mhm.
may be one of the biggest
Agreed.
issues with
Mhm.
being able to move forward with it. Like
Mhm.
if she's telling you all this stuff about her,
Mhm.
she's listening to you. That's basically her telling you
Mhm.
she's giving you a chance. Don't drop the ball.
Yeah. But you
Don't.
know what?
But you're
Go ahead.
dropping the ball. You're dropping the ball. She's
Yeah.
engaging with you. You're dropping the ball because you're too focused
Mhm.
on that title.
But you know what's very interesting, and I've seen this a lot, and this always irks my soul when I see it, and it hurts my feelings in a way as a woman because I've seen so many men, so many black men in this discussion say when women say, "But I'm educated, I can support myself," and how many men their response is no real man cares about that. No real man cares about that. And that's again, it's the ego thing. But this is where a lot of the art, and I'm not saying that women are not don't have their own arguments. I would love it if men could share some of the stupidness that they've heard. But you don't know how many times I've heard that and read that. And it always boils my blood because women are constantly reduced to you as a woman is supposed to be a nurturer. You're in earth. That's what you're here for. You're to be my helpmate. I'm the lead. Oh my fucking God. Excuse my language.
I think.
This is the shit we hear.
I
And
think
it's like
from
nobody cares about how much you make. A real man doesn't want that. A real man
from
doesn't want all that.
from my experience and what I see, right?
Hmm.
Um, how can I preface this? That when some women say that, and a man in his mind may look at as that she's trying to use that as a weapon against him. Now, my response to that as a man, and I've
Hmm.
said it, your accomplishments are your accomplishments, and you earned the
Hmm.
right to your accomplishment.
Hmm.
If I was in the dating field or meeting somebody and they said that
Hmm.
to me about their education, I would not look at that as a quality. It would be, oh,
Okay.
you got your master's, you got your doctorate.
Hmm.
Oh, you, that's good. I'm
That's
glad you did
fair.
that. You
That's fair.
sacrificed a lot
Hmm.
to get where you're at.
That's fair.
I want to know who you are.
Hmm.
You know what I
No,
mean?
that's fair. Yeah, yeah,
I want
yeah.
to know who you are. And
That's fair.
we and this goes back to I understand exactly what you meant when you brought it up. Like we are very defensive.
Hmm.
Like if she's telling you like, you know, for example, if she don't have children
Hmm.
and she be like, I didn't want children. I wanted to
Hmm.
focus on school. And I'm a doctor and now I'm 38, 39,
Hmm.
40, whatever. And now I'm ready to settle down and have a family.
Hmm.
When on the other hand, we we had a child out of wedlock at 18
Hmm.
and had to figure it out the other way.
Yeah.
If you feel like she's not knocking you for making those decisions back
Right.
then, why are you looking at her sacrifice and accomplishments
Right.
as a crutch?
Right.
We weaponize, and this is where I always come to grips with this in the black community.
Hmm.
You women were on that auction block just like we were.
Hmm.
You're not
Hmm.
my enemy.
Hmm.
I am not your enemy.
Hmm.
But for some reason, in 2024, it's like we're just at each other's throats. Like, I'm not a woman in the workforce. I'm not a black woman in the workforce. You know how I know about the microaggressions that y'all go through?
Hmm.
Through you,
Right. Right. Right.
through
Yeah.
Professor Dre. She's a good friend of
Hmm.
mine. Through my sisters. I don't
Yeah.
know nothing about that. That's
Yeah.
oblivious to my life. I don't know nothing about that.
Right.
my work experience and what I deal with, how I'm treated at work is not
Mhm.
like that. So when I hear it, when I first heard it, I was like, what are those women talking about? And how y'all deal with it. And I'm gonna give you an example.
Mhm.
How y'all deal with it from older black women.
Mm.
Those are the real microaggressions y'all get attacked for. Because they definitely when y'all come in that office and you gotta deal with it, right? So for me to hear it over and over from black women that I'm close with, and they tell me that, and I listen to it, now I have an understanding that you know what? She's dealing with so much microaggressions on her 9 to 5. When I talk to her, when we go out, when we share, I don't need to be the asshole. I need
Mhm.
to be the one to be like, how was your day? Tell me about your day.
Mhm.
What was it like? And I think that a lot of times it's just this. You're not my enemy. You're not my rival. Like we,
Yeah.
your trauma that you've been through as a black woman, as a black woman in this country,
Mhm.
have been through so much trauma, so much abuse.
Yeah.
And this isn't, and I hope that people be understanding this is not no simp shit. What
Right.
I'm saying,
Right.
this is real.
Yeah.
And I don't believe when I say I'm passionate about it that it's pandering.
Mm-mm.
If I know your story, what y'all been through, the medical part-time shit,
Mhm.
everything, up until the day, how
Mhm.
your pain is not considered pain because
Mhm.
you're a black woman.
Yeah.
And I know my own personal story.
Right.
How can I look at you as the
Mhm.
enemy?
Mhm. Yeah.
I, that's when I hear when people say, "Oh, you just don't like black women, or you don't like white women, or you don't like black men." I'll be
Right.
like, I don't,
Right.
I don't, I'm not there. I
Right.
don't understand it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's an interesting
Mhm.
thing, in to understand how did we get this division, and it's like you said, Viv, it's it, when people come to you with this archaic archaic mentality, you like, I can only imagine.
I be wanting to like punch people in the face. I'm like, what? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, be a
Exactly.
sounding board and emotionally
Mhm.
available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let
But
me
okay.
go ahead, Viv.
No, I was gonna say. So one thing I want to say about, I know you referenced slavery and how we were getting married back then, etc. Right? I think that there is something to be said for a even if unintentionally, some of what developed really with us, I mean, culturally too, is was out of protest, if you will. You know what I mean? Like it is every day that slaves lived, and it wasn't necessarily intentional all the time, but like even it was defiance, some of it. Like, we're gonna get married, we are going to have joy. I'm gonna have joy. It's my human right. So their lives, again, even unbeknownst to them, were an act of protest every day and everything that they did. And when you are in a situation where you have no other choice, yeah, you make it do what it do. And I say the same thing about segregation. A lot of the divide, even within the Black community, just as a whole, came from segregation economically, because now I don't have to, you know what I mean? Like Dr. Martin Luther King and his family, they might have lived down the street from someone who maybe didn't have a college education, whatever. At the time, people didn't have a choice. So we're all in this together now. But the moment things were desegregated, folks,
I'm
bye
better than
bye,
you.
I'm
I'm
out. You feel what I'm saying?
the
So some
Jeffersons,
of
huh?
what took place on the plantation was we were all in this together, and you still had sellouts. I'm sure you had, you know what I'm saying, you had issues or whatever, but like they that was all they had. So now it's different. Once things start to evolve, like we ain't on a plantation anymore, thank God. And now it's like, okay, we got to show up differently. But
I'm gonna ask you a question because I was thinking about this earlier when I was at work, and I was thinking about conversating about this in our show about being how sometimes we could see something and hear something, and it indoctrinate us, right?
Mhm,
Well, there was a show, there was a movie, right? And I don't know what made me think about this.
mhm,
There was a movie that was out. I think it might have been 82, 83, 84, around that area.
mhm.
Uh, Demarcus and Professor Dre. Do you guys remember Kramer versus Kramer?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
I
goodness.
watched I didn't watch it, but I know what you're talking
It
about.
I'm gonna tell you the movie was really good, but it was when you think about how nasty their divorce was.
Hmm.
And and I can't remember everything and why they got divorced, but this played into, and I know we're talking about the black community,
Mhm,
but this plays into this divide. Like
mhm,
this movie might have been an indoctrination of beefing
mhm,
because and I don't want to take the subject even too further,
mhm,
but when you even look at peel back some of the layers of Roe versus Wade,
mhm.
he wanted a child. She did not want a child.
Okay.
Supposedly she got pregnant and what she said after. But anyway, think about that. That even in our political climate now,
Mhm.
that was an issue that a lot of times that was their single most issue with people with election. That
Yeah.
it was no, I'm pro life,
Mhm.
I'm pro choice, and it may have caused more separation in the household. It may have hopefully it caused more unity, no matter what side you decide that you and your family need to be on. But it's like you see it, you see it in the commercials, like it's this weird division, and a lot of politicians play on catering to the men.
Mhm.
Some politics cater to the women, and it's like I saw a commercial, and I don't want to get into a political conversation, but I was really upset when I saw one of the campaigns use voting and voting behind your mate's back. Oh, you don't have to tell them. Now, you in the
Oh, okay.
every now we were all raised. I was raised. I don't know how you were, Viv, but I was raised. Your vote is your vote.
Mhm.
You don't have to tell nobody who you voted for. You
Mhm,
shouldn't
mhm,
tell
mhm.
nobody who you voted for.
Yeah.
If you're in a union, you say you don't even tell the person you with who you voted for. That's your
Mhm,
choice.
mhm,
I would never be with nobody and force them to vote the way I vote because I just don't
mhm.
think like that, right?
Okay.
But I was highly offended when I saw a campaign and it was targeting women and saying women basically didn't have a voice or a choice to vote who they want to vote for. And it was more divisive of saying vote behind your husband's back. I,
Oh,
I
okay.
couldn't believe it.
Well, how did they set that up? Help me out, because I don't think I saw that
They
commercial.
set it up. It was basically he don't have to know. And it was targeting women. He
Mhm.
don't have to know. No, first of all, y'all know everybody that has voted before. Nobody knows who you
Right,
vote
right,
for.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
Mhm.
could tell somebody you voted for the man in the moon, and
Mhm.
you could have voted for whoever you wanted for. So I just thought it was
So I
really.
think
I thought it was, and I get it that maybe they were targeting some people that religious people may feel like religion or
yeah.
whatever type of doctrine or ideology a person
Mhm.
follow that the women follow the men.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very, very offensive to me at my
Okay.
age now that we would be doing this type of marketing because this division.
But I think, and I hear what you're saying. I think with that, they were probably targeting white women because many, if you looked at how folks voted, many white women, they went the way many of their husbands did. So I think it was targeting white women. I'm just gonna be blunt. Um, I think it was targeting white women,
Well,
and it was trying.
that will lead me to a whole nother topic
Yeah, I'm just
because
saying. I think that's
how the
I hear what you're
suffrage
saying.
movement was not for us, but
Well, none of the movements were, but not for nothing. And I know that's a whole different discussion, but I do think it is relevant though, because I do think that, and people often, that is the critique, right? That some black men have. I mean, not necessarily with the suffrage, I'm trying to say movement, but some black men will say, oh, a feminist. Oh my God, you're a feminist. You're blah 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 blah. Feminism is not for black women. Da da da. Because and so my thing is like, there are many black men who vocalize, they might not mean to, but they have an issue with a black woman being pro woman. Like, it pisses people off. It pisses so many men off. And it's like, you're pro woman, so you're automatically anti man. And it's like, no, that's not the case. I want to read this. Okay, I always felt that marriage was an institution, but now people making marriage a business. Oh, marriage started as a business, though. Marriage was a business long before it started.
Get married and get a divorce in America. They're gonna show you it's a business.
Yeah, marriage started as a business. I mean, honestly, it was a business. It was a way for women, the only real way for women to kind of have a little bit of a voice, you know what I'm saying, and be connected to property way back in the day. It was a business.
Understanding that in America definitely it was business transactional,
Hmm.
and understanding, like Viv said, like I gotta marry you. I gotta marry my daughter off to a wealthy family.
Yeah.
This is how these people think, and
Hmm.
whether we have the same indoctrination or understanding, this is how they think. This is why that marriage certificate holds so much weight, and
Hmm.
that divorce decree holds much weight after
Hmm.
it's done. Um, and I think that, like Demarcus said, like we probably are taught different in our homes what marriage is, and what we believe marriage is, and some
Well, yeah.
people may look at it as a fantasy.
Well, but I think it's because marriage, if you're talking about black folks in America, for a long time, black people, and I'm not saying blacks who never had wealth, I don't mean that, but I mean, given our circumstances, clearly Kizzy wasn't going down to get Ernest, for his they both slaves looking at each other. So
Yeah,
no, that again, it was a revolutionary. Like, it was about love and bond and trying to create something out of this horrific situation. We weren't in a situation where it was going to be about money.
yeah.
Mhm.
Professor Dre had said if it is big business, especially during slavery, if the whites had slaves, she was being courted heavy because
Mhm.
of her property. And if you understand anything about slavery, you know that there was some major white slave owners back then. DeMarcus said reality TV has messed up a lot of things now, and everything is exposed now.
I mean, yeah, in this age of probably of social media, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think honestly, a lot of it is people are finally hearing and seeing what people have been thinking. I don't think it's new mentality. I think people are just able to live a little bit more out loud. You know what I mean? As we evolve technologically, I think that's really all it is. It's the same, thing that go notion when it comes to like, oh, there seems to be so much more, fights or crimes. No, people are recording it now. This shit happened.
Uh,
We just
And
couldn't
and
film it.
when you look at that, I mean, I'll name a movie that most people don't realize was a love story, but they think it was about slavery.
What?
Django.
Oh yeah, Django was a love story.
Django was a love story.
It was. He went back to get
Most
his wife.
and most people will never consider that as a
Why?
romantic.
That was a whole plot. Are they stupid? They
We know
dumb.
that, but
They
most people
just
will not
dumb.
consider it like how we love in basketball and all these
Yeah.
other great love movies. The Django was a true love story, and according to some people, the Django was based on a true character.
Hmm.
So you know what he went through to go get his baby.
Yeah, it
So
was
this
the
is what
whole plot was a love story.
this is what people do, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times you would want to be with somebody out of the what we consider the love, but like Viv said, when both of y'all come from nothing, there is no other choice but to be.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And
Because
listen, I think I don't want to be put in a box for anybody out there. Don't ask me if I can
yeah,
fucking cook,
as
okay?
just like
Or if
on
I clean.
screen, she's in a circle now. She don't want to be in a box later.
Don't want to be in a box.
And
That is
and
the
I think
worst
that
feeling.
that is the biggest understanding is that we, regardless of my preconceived thoughts, views,
Mhm.
get to know the person outside of what you even see. Like say if you meet somebody through social media, through a group or something,
Mhm.
realize that yeah, after the fact, we always complain to them. I never knew them. That was their representative. Everybody shows you their
That's
representative.
life. Yeah,
Get
that's
to know
life.
who they are because you may not like because they put the
Mhm.
toilet tissue under and you may like it over. So,
Over. Yeah.
well, Demarcus, I'm one of those people, Demarcus, and I'll answer this. I'm one of them people that don't think arranged marriages are wrong,
Hmm. Really?
and
Why?
we'll
Oh, it's all.
discuss that in a
We'll
future
have
show.
a different show
I'm
for
one of
that.
them people that think that arranged marriages in the pretext, not forced marriages, that
Okay.
arranged marriages. I would want to. I have a son. And what I
You
mean
do.
by arranged marriage, if I know you, Demarcus, and me and you know each other well, and I know that you're a good man,
Hmm.
your wife is a good mother, and you have a beautiful daughter, I would want my son to marry your daughter, and vice versa. If I had a daughter and I thought your son was a good young man, worthy,
Hmm.
honorable, was raised right, I wouldn't force him, but I might, try to, as we would say, good old clean manipulation. And that's what I mean by that.
Not good old clean
And I think that a
manipulation.
lot of times we don't do that. I think this is what we always talk about the village. Well, the village concept comes from this. This is what the fruits
Hmm.
of the village. You know the family. You know
Hmm.
people. You know. Let me tell you, when they say that the apple don't fall too far from the tree, that
Hmm.
stuff is right.
Hmm.
You may be a little different than your people, your
Yeah.
family.
That's why people ask who your people, because they want to know what family you come from. Yep. You're right.
If I don't get along with my sisters, my brother, my
Hmm.
family, right?
Hmm.
How the hell can I get along with you?
Hmm.
I don't know nothing about that. For me, on a personal note, I don't know anything about family discord.
Hmm.
Get
Yeah.
along with
I
my
don't either.
brother. Me
Hmm.
and my sisters are tight. Maybe my cousin probably is my best friend.
Hmm.
All my friends that I got now was friends since childhood. Not saying I can't meet new people,
Hmm.
but I don't know nothing about that family beefing. I
Yeah.
don't have that problem.
Hmm.
Some people, and it's understandable,
Hmm.
they don't get along with their siblings.
Yeah.
Their family is not close knit.
Hmm.
For me, in my experience, I've been in relationships with people like that. It never works
You
out.
know, I got you. I got you.
So Drea said, bring the person you're dating around the seasoned and qualified elders. They will help you vet that person. Yes. See, Professor Drea understands that vetting process. There ain't nothing wrong with it. It's no rush.
Yeah.
Listen, Demarcus, I'm not speaking to you, but I'm speaking because you brought it up, like the arranged marriages. Ain't no rush. Ain't no rush. You is that relationship or that marriage that you choose to get into, it can either be the best thing you ever did in your life
Hmm.
or the worst. And even if it's a bad experience, you should use it as a learning experience going forward.
Yeah, that's her.
So we hope that
So.
we were able to have this discussion and um just grow from this conversation to understanding that the gender divide and what's responsible. We can't pinpoint what's responsible.
Hmm.
We all know that we think that it's a problem. We believe it's a problem. We hope that it gets better. If not for you as an individual, but definitely for the community.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Um. So I mean, I think I would say as society develops, the gender divide is inevitable. I think that maybe years, hundreds, of years down the road, when things become, some people would say, oh, it's going to become more muddled. I think that's a good thing when things are maybe a little bit more ambiguous in terms of, again, the difference between men and women, etc. That quote unquote divide will get smaller. But I think it's kind of inevitable. And I don't think it's a bad thing. As a woman, I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think a lot of it comes from now women being more outspoken and being like, yeah, I don't want to do the traditional thing. And that doesn't make me less of a woman. It just means I don't want to do the traditional thing. I have other things that I bring to the table, you know what I mean? And that I want to offer. Doesn't mean that if I'm in a relationship, I won't want to cook for my man. Yeah, I might be like, oh, babe, I'm gonna cook you up. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna want to nurture and care for him. It just means I don't want to be looked at and picked because you think I'm a nurturer and a carer. In that sense, you feel what I'm saying? I get that it's traits, and that might be something that you like in a woman, but I don't want to be boxed in like that, where your expectation of me is, oh, well, you're a woman, so you're a natural nurturer. Like, yeah, slow down, sir. So I just say I don't think the gender divide is necessarily a bad thing. I think it leaves room for discourse
One
desperately
last
needed.
question. Demarcus asked me this a couple times. I forgot to put it up there.
Oh.
What do y'all think about the pop the balloon challenge?
Okay, listen.
Is he talking about the gender reveal?
No, he's talking about that show. I think Demarcus clarify. I think he's talking about the show with the red balloon. And so you have a man or woman who comes on, and they're the contestant, and you
Oh,
have people standing there, and the moment they walk in, you might hear pop, 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 pop. So I think it is what it is. I think it is I mean, I don't love it, because I think it is like, ooh, it feels disrespectful to me, right? However, not for nothing, they're all consenting adults. Like, people who sign up to go on that show have consented. They know what's going to happen. So that's their business. I think it is just a bit of an evolution. Yeah, it is funny. It's a bit of an evolution of the dating game.
I know
It's a
what it
new
is.
way to do it.
I've
It's
seen
kind of
it.
clever. Yeah, it's kind
I've,
of
I've,
clever.
I've seen it, and I will tell you what I think of it.
Okay.
I think those type of shows show exactly why we're able to have a podcast like this and talk about it. Regardless of if a person thinks that show is cheap, if a person thinks it's like disrespectful, people are trying to figure it out. People are trying. I don't think people like we know a lot of people they live fluid. They
Mm-hmm.
date who they want to date. They want to have multiple dating partners.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they choose to do. But for the most part, I personally believe people are trying to get it right. So these type of shows are like a vetting
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And I did see the pop in the balloon, and a lot of people do get offended when
Funny.
their balloon gets popped, and they tell them why their balloon is popped.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, outside of being on TV and being in front of people, sometimes people need to be honest and be like, "Look, I can't date you because you you're too big, you weigh too much,
Mm-hmm.
or you too short." If
Mm-hmm.
if you think that that's what you need and that's what you want, a person is too short, too tall, too big, too skinny, they don't got the complexion that you got, hair on their face, no hair on their head, look like they growing bald, got a George Jefferson. Whatever you think
Mm-hmm.
that you want, and that's what you
Mm-hmm.
require, that's your right.
Yeah,
And
you're very upfront and
sometimes
honest.
those quote unquote red flags that people see, you need to say something
Mm-hmm.
because you'll mess around and then 18 years later you'll be wondering what the hell you got yourself into.
Fair, fair, fair.
You knew who you was dealing with before you started dealing with them, right? You
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
get to know the person.
Yeah,
Um, Got to respect that balloon challenge or the
I
show
think
because
it's funny.
it's interesting because sometimes listen, this is the mind of the creator.
Mm-hmm.
Mind of the creator was to create a type of show like that, and that's a person that has good forward progressive thinking.
Yep.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Any final words, Q?
My final word is do not be part of. the discussion, be in the discussion.
Okay.
Understand, listen to understand,
Hmm.
and don't listen just to be listening. Because a lot of times, and I'm speaking directly to the men, a lot of times all the issues were said to you prior. You
Hmm.
just didn't want to hear them.
Okay.
With that, until next time, you guys
Thank
take care.
y'all.
See y'all later.